Hello and welcome. You're watching the Tuesday edition of This Is Exclusive with me, Shavin Sen. Ladies and gentlemen, since the time he was convicted back in 2017, this is the 12th time that he's out on parole. Yes, I'm talking about rapist Rahim. And this is just a week before Delhi is to go to assembly polls. And there is a pattern that basically emerges. All this and much more in this edition of This Is Exclusive. But up first, let's take you through the headlines we are tracking at this hour. Rape convict Rahim out on 12th parole since his 2017 sentence to spend parole time in Dera headquarters in Sirsa.
आरोपी बिल्कुल वही है। आरोपी के विरुद्ध हमें ओरल, फिजिकल और टेक्निकल तीनों प्रकार के बहुत सारे एविडेंस मिले हैं।
Mumbai police briefs media on self-attack probe, says ample proof against the accused. Ministry of External Affairs lodges strong protest over Sri Lankan Navy firing at Indian fishermen. Ministry of External Affairs summons Sri Lankan envoy to New Delhi. Is DeepSeek a threat to India's security? What does this application making headlines everywhere say about India's territorial integrity? Bringing that answer on this episode of This Is Exclusive. Rahim, the controversial rape convict known for his influence amongst his followers, has now been granted yet another parole. And this time, it's his 12th parole since his conviction in 2017. The scenes that we saw outside the Dera headquarters this morning was shocking to say the least. You have his supporters celebrating, bursting crackers, welcoming the rape convict. Not just that, you also have people, his devotees, who are now coming out saying that we welcome this decision that has been taken by the court, and the fact that the district administration has a very important role to play. The reason why he was basically allowed to be at the headquarters this time was because there was a report that was prepared by the district administration, and they said that they have absolutely no objection whatsoever, if at all, Rahim is actually allowed to return to the headquarters in Sirsa. Now, these images that I'm showing you are just after Rahim stepped out of the jail in Rohtak. This was around 4:30 in the morning when he was secretly taken out, and then he enters the headquarters. Take a look at these pictures which are now out. Well, just to remind all of you, viewers of This Is Exclusive, back in 2017, what really happened when Rahim was taken into custody? This was after he was convicted. These are visuals of the violence that broke out in various parts of Haryana, in Panchkula too. And not just that, the media that has been relentlessly covering this. In fact, Republic TV was also targeted. Our OB vans were targeted by his supporters because we dared to ask those questions about his role in the case. In fact, he was convicted in 2 rape cases. Not just that, in a short while from now, we're also going to be joined by one such person who was fighting against the ills of this man, Rahim. But what is important to point out is that there is a pattern that is essentially emerging. From the time that he has been sentenced, at least over 200 days that he has already been out of jail. And interestingly, all of this basically is timed with some election or the other. We are not basically commenting on how exactly this has happened, but there is certainly a pattern, viewers, because if you really look at what's really happening. Now, I'm going to take you through this entire pattern that is basically emerged, how it all started when he was granted parole, and how is it linked to some election or the other? Let's first begin. January 2025, 30-day parole to visit the Dera Sirsa. This is the first. Now, second, 20-day parole to observe father's death anniversary. Now, I'm just going to ask my producers also just to tell me the timings of the elections, which I had asked a short while back. We'll just put this out also. January 2024, 50-day parole to stay at the Barwana Ashram. Now, this is again linked to another elections that were coming up at that point in time. Let's take you through the others. 21-day furlough to stay at the Barwana Ashram. Now, all of this is outside the Dera headquarters. Let's take you through the others. July 2023, 30 days parole to stay at Barwana Ashram. Let's move on quickly. This is again 40-day parole, cuts cake with a sword at the Barwana Ashram. This is where the celebrations were taking place. In October 2022, a 40-day parole releases 3 music videos. These are music videos that he releases while he's there, out on parole. August 2024, 21-day furlough to stay at the Barwana Ashram. And then you have June 2022, 30-day parole to stay at the Barwana Ashram again. Now, this makes it almost 11 to 12 such paroles and furlough that has already been granted to him. 21-day furlough to meet the family, that is February 2022. Let's take you through the details that are also now coming in. May 2021, 12-hour parole to meet unwell mother. Then you have a 1-day parole to visit ailing mother. That's October 2020. Now, this is the number of paroles and furlough that he has been granted. Now, how exactly is the election? How is it linked to it? We don't know, but look at this pattern. October 2024, you have a 20-day parole ahead of the Punjab elections. Let's move on. This is the second one. 17th and 18th of July, he is granted parole ahead of the Haryana municipal elections. There too, you have just about a few days before the municipal elections. Let's move to the third one. Granted parole ahead of the Adampur bypolls, October 15th to November 25th. Again, he's been granted parole. We are given to understand some emergency that was basically cited. Let's take you through the others. July to August 2023, granted parole ahead of the Haryana Panchayat polls too. Let's take you further. So you're clearly looking at how the pattern is emerging now. Parole ahead of Rajasthan elections, November 21st to December 13. And then, let's take you through the others right now. All of this basically looks at the pattern right now. And now you have, ahead of the Delhi elections, 30-day parole has been granted to the Dera chief. Now, rapist Rahim has a great influence amongst his followers, particularly in various districts of Haryana and given to understand even in Punjab. So if at all there is actually a close link, it's important to point out here what's really happening. Is there some sort of an understanding? Why exactly is the district administration perhaps always on the toes when it comes to Rahim? In a short while from now, we'll also be joined by our guest, Ramchandra Chhatrapati, who ran a newspaper. Now, his son is going to join us, called the Pura Sach. Now, this particular newspaper ran a series of reports. Now, he's going to join us in a short while from now. But before that, let me just take you through this report, which will actually take you through this entire period that he has been out. And for the first time, he's also spoken out. Let's take a look.
Is out on parole yet again. For the first time since his conviction on rape charges, Rahim is set to spend the parole at his Dera headquarters in Sirsa.
प्यारी साथ संगीजियों, परमात्मा की कृपा से आपके दर्शनों के लिए फिर से आपकी सेवा में आए हैं और इस बार सरसा धाम में आए हैं, शास्त्रनाम जी श्यामस्तान जी धाम में। तो आपसे प्रार्थना है कि आप लोग शास्त्रनाम जी धाम श्यामस्तान जी धाम सरसा में ना आए, अपनी अपनी जगह पे रहें, हमें दर्शन दें। तो आपसे प्रार्थना है, आप जैसी भी सेवादार आपको कहेंगे उस पर पूरा अमल करना है जी।
Rahim's 20-year sentence began in 2017 and till now he has spent more than 250 days outside the prison. Interestingly, Rahim's parole often comes right ahead of heated state polls. Delhi, Haryana, Punjab. The rape convict enjoys strong influence in these regions and was granted parole right during the peak of the campaign season. On your screens are shocking images. Look how Ram Rahim's supporters are celebrating the rape convict's parole. Listen in to what these supporters had to say.
कितनी खुशी है बाबा जी ਇੱਥੇ ਆਏ ਨੇ
ਬਸ ਗਦ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਬਹੁਤ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ 7 सालों तो दर्शन पहली बार करूँ।
सरप्राइज मिला, हमें तो बहुत बड़ा सरप्राइज मिला है। जो हमारा दिन चढ़ा है ना, आज तो खुशी का दिन चढ़ा, हम तो खूब नाच के आए हैं, अभी बहुत ज्यादा एक्साइटेड है हम तो।
As Ram Rahim is out once again, the question remains, are political parties leveraging rape convicts to win state polls?
Ramchandra Chhatrapati joins us. He's the son of Ramchandra Chhatrapati, who had started this newspaper called Pura Sach. Now, this newspaper ran a series of reports that exposed how girls, women, they were all sexually abused in the ashram of Ram Rahim in Sirsa. Now, Chhatrapati was shot at on 24th of October in 2002. Unfortunately, he had succumbed to those injuries. A case was thereafter registered against Ram Rahim in 2003. And when the CBI took over the case in 2006, a charge sheet was filed. In 2007, Ram Rahim was thereafter sentenced to life in prison for murder of journalist Chhatrapati. Anshul ji, आपसे एक सवाल करना चाहूँगा, क्योंकि अगर आप देखें जब से ये सेंटेंसिंग हुआ, उसके बाद कई बार परोल दिया गया, फरलो दिया गया, और इस बार ये कहा जा रहा है कि वो डेरा के अंदर जा सकते हैं, सिरसा में जा सकते हैं, अपने जितने डेवोटीज हैं उनसे बात कर सकते हैं। आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे, क्योंकि कई सालों तक आपने ये मुहिम चालू की थी, आपने लड़ाई की, आपके पिताजी ने उनके बारे में काफ़ी कुछ लिखा। आप क्या कहेंगे इतनी बार जो परोल दिया गया है?
देखिए, मैं इतना कहूंगा कि पहली बात तो ये कि ये जो सब गुरमीत राम रहीम ने पहले अपने डेरा के अंदर जिस तरीके से अपनी साध्वियों के साथ बलात्कार किए, साधुओं को नपुंसक बनाया, हमारे फादर का कत्ल करवाया, और एक कत्ल का मामला उसके ऊपर अभी विचाराधीन है। तो ये जो सारी बलात्कार और कत्ल वो करता रहा पहले, और उसके बाद जिस तरीके से उसने पूरे सिस्टम का बलात्कार किया और कत्ल किया, कानून व्यवस्था का और कानून का जिस तरीके से बलात्कार किया और कत्ल किया, तो वो मुकदमे तो आज तक कहीं चलाए ही नहीं गए। उन मुकदमों की आज तक उसको सजा मिल ही नहीं पाई, क्योंकि सरकार जो है, हमारा सिस्टम जो है, प्रशासन जो है, जिसने उस सारे व्यवस्था को बचाने के लिए उसके ऊपर नकेल कसनी थी, उसने लगातार उसको छूट पर छूट दिए रखी, जिस वजह से वो लगातार हमारे सिस्टम का बलात्कार करता रहा, उसका कत्ल करता रहा। और यही वजह है कि आज जब उसको कन्विक्शन हो चुका है, वो जेल में बंद है, उसके बावजूद वो लगातार हमारे सिस्टम से खेल रहा है, हमारे कानून व्यवस्था से, हमारी कानून प्रणाली से खेल रहा है और उसका बलात्कार कर रहा है। तो ये कहीं ना कहीं जिस सिस्टम ने इसके ऊपर अंकुश लगाना था, इस पर रोक लगानी थी, वो सिस्टम कहीं ना कहीं राम रहीम के सामने बौना साबित हो रहा है।
अंशुल जी, पर इसके सवाल कौन उठाएगा? अंशुल जी, क्योंकि लोग कहते हैं, और राम रहीम के जो सपोर्टर्स हैं, उनके लीगल टीम, वो कहते हैं कि देखिए आखिरकार ये हमारा हक है, परोल फरलो मिलना एक इनमेट के लिए हक बनता है, तो इसके ऊपर सवाल कौन उठाएगा? अगर अंशुल जी आप ये सवाल उठाते हैं कि आखिरकार ये पूरे सिस्टम को खराब किया जा रहा है, ये सिस्टम पे सवाल उठा रहा है, बट ये लड़ाई आगे कौन लेकर जाएगा, इसके ऊपर सवाल कौन करेगा?
देखिए, सबसे पहले तो मैं ये कहूंगा कि इस लड़ाई का जो सूत्रधार थे, हमारे फादर थे, जो एक जर्नलिस्ट थे, तो उन्होंने एक मीडिया कर्मी के नाते इस लड़ाई को शुरू किया, और उनका कत्ल भी इसीलिए, उनकी हत्या करवाई गई क्योंकि वो राम रहीम को एक्सपोज करना चाह रहे थे, उसके काले कारनामों को एक्सपोज करना चाह रहे थे, उनकी हत्या करवा दी गई। उसके बाद आज मैं तो यही मैसेज दूंगा आपके मार्फत से कि ये आज ड्यूटी बनती है हमारे मीडिया की, हमारे लोकतंत्र का जो चौथा स्तंभ कहा जाता है मीडिया को, तो मीडिया की ये ड्यूटी है कि इस लोकतंत्र के अंदर जिस तरीके से कानून के साथ खिलवाड़ किया जा रहा है, कुछ राजनीतिक लोगों को अपना मोटिव हल करना है और उनके साथ मिली भगत करके जिस तरीके से कानून का मजाक बनाया जा रहा है, तो कहीं ना कहीं मीडिया को इस मामले में बिल्कुल इनिशिएटिव लेना चाहिए और आगे आकर के इस पूरे मामले को एक कैंपेन की तरह चलाना चाहिए, ताकि एक ऐसा व्यक्ति, एक अपराधी जिसने लगातार अपराध किए हों, बलात्कार, हत्याएं करवाई, और उसके बाद भी आज जिस तरीके से वो खिलवाड़ कर रहा है सिस्टम के साथ, तो मीडिया को बिल्कुल खुल करके इस मामले में एक कैंपेन चलाना चाहिए। और दूसरा मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा, अनुरोध करूंगा हमारी न्यायपालिका से कि जिस तरीके से सिस्टम, इस पूरे सिस्टम के साथ जिस तरीके से खिलवाड़ किया जा रहा है, उसको रोकने के लिए हमारी न्यायपालिका को भी इसमें सुओ मोटो कॉग्निजेंस लेना चाहिए। वो बात अलग है कि उसके सपोर्टर्स या उनकी लीगल टीम जो है वो इसको जायज ठहरा रही है, इसको लीगल ठहरा रही है, वो बात अलग है, लेकिन इसको लीगल करार देने के लिए जिस तरीके से राजनीतिक सिस्टम का दुरुपयोग किया गया।
अंशुल जी, ये सवाल सबको मिलकर उठाना पड़ेगा कि आखिरकार हो क्या रहा है, क्या एक तरह से पैटर्न है इस पूरे मामले में। दैट वाज Anshul joining us on this, raising questions about the parole and furlough that has been granted not once but 12 times. Effectively 250 days that he's already been outside. Ladies and gentlemen, moving to the other big story that we're getting to tonight on This Is Exclusive. An incident of firing by the Sri Lankan Navy during the apprehension of 13 Indian fishermen in the proximity of the Delta Island was reported in the early hours of this morning. Out of the 13 fishermen who were basically on board the fishing vessel, 2 have sustained serious injuries. I'm told that the number has increased. It's 3 now, and they have been taken to the Jaffna Teaching Hospital, where 3 other fishermen have also received treatment. But having said that, there's too, ladies and gentlemen, there is a clear pattern of how Indian fishermen have been targeted, and perhaps that is the reason why now you have the Ministry of External Affairs pulling up the Sri Lankan envoy, asking them that what exactly is happening despite the negotiations that were going on. In a short while from now, from the negotiating team of the Sri Lankans, we would be having a guest, the former fisheries minister, also joining us. But first, take a look at this report. What's really happening on the ground and what more details we have on this.
The Sri Lankan Navy has fired upon innocent 13 Indian fishermen near the Delta Island in Pork Strait. The Ministry of External Affairs lodged strong protest against Sri Lanka following the incident. The acting High Commissioner of Sri Lanka in New Delhi was summoned by the MEA to register an official complaint. Concurrently, the issue was also brought up with the Sri Lankan authorities by the Indian High Commission in Colombo. The Ministry of External Affairs has categorically mentioned that the use of force under any circumstance remains unacceptable. The ministry has urged for the rigorous adherence to already established mutual agreements concerning fishing operations in the area. Speaking exclusively to Republic, former Fisheries Minister of Sri Lanka Douglas Devanda also maintained that firing at fishermen remains unacceptable, and it is imperative for new mechanisms to discuss this through.
There are hundreds of people, Indian trawlers, they are crossing the border and doing illegal fishing. Because of that, the wealth of the Sri Lankan Tamil fishermen is affected by that. You can't shoot the people, but there should be a mechanism under the control of these issues. Even recently also, Delhi feels the Sri Lankan should deal with the Tamil Nadu government also. They could have used that opportunity, but they didn't use the opportunity. So they missed the opportunity.
As yet another incident reignites one of the massive friction points between India and Sri Lanka, what are the steps that will be taken to resolve this pressing issue?
Rajitha Senaratna is joining us. He's the former Sri Lankan minister. In fact, he's been part of various negotiations that have taken place between both the countries. Mr. Senaratna, this is a huge cause of concern that you have the fishermen who've been targeted, and this has been on the negotiating table for quite some time. I'm given to understand some questions were also being raised about the role that the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu had to play. What is it that both the countries have not been able to address so far?
Actually, this is a historical problem that there are thousands of fishermen in a very organized way entering our Sri Lankan waters in the northern peninsula. And in the northern province, the main employment and the main economy for the northern province in Sri Lanka is fisheries. So the fishermen are the highest employees in that area. So whatever it affects, that affects the entire economy, the entire population of the northern province. So during my time also we had this problem, but we never used force. It is not correct to use force because India is our the closest friend, and also the Indian fishermen are also our brothers. They are not outsiders. Historically, we are together. So we can never accept using force against the innocent poor fishermen. The fishermen can't do anything. The owners who organize these things. So at that time, when I took aerial photographs to see that like bees are coming. Thousands and thousands of vessels are entering our waters about 2 p.m. That means 2 o'clock in the afternoon together, and they leave 4 a.m. the next day morning. So by that time, huge vessels.
But Mr. Senaratna, the fact here is that you are talking about this because it is again disputed to a greater extent, the understanding of it, and that is the reason why there was an understanding, the cooperation between both the nations were basically expected. But despite that, Sri Lanka seems to have taken a hard position on this entire matter. A quick response from you. What's the way forward now?
The way forward is discussion. Last time when I was the Minister of Fisheries, I was invited by the Indian government, and I came to Delhi and I had discussion with the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
But Mr. Senaratna, is force acceptable? The question here is that you are talking about innocent fishermen who have been targeted. Can force be acceptable at any cost?
No, not at all. Not at all. We can do a lot of things without taking illegal means, like arresting the vessels. I actually contained and I resolved this problem. And even the Indian government accepted, not only the Indian, the then Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, the Chief Minister Karunanidhi, and later when I came to there as the Minister of Health also, as the former Fisheries Minister, I explained to the Prime Minister Modi, he also accepted that formula.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Rajitha Senaratna, for joining us on this broadcast. Now, this is something that is yet to be resolved. And ladies and gentlemen, over the last few days and a few months, we've seen the number of such incidents that have taken place, which is exactly why you have the Ministry of External Affairs finally now stepping in, lodging a strong protest on this entire issue. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get you the other big story tonight. This is with regards to DeepSeek. Now, this has become the biggest talking point, if I may say so, over the last 24 hours, particularly given the fact that you have stocks of OpenAI tanking right now. And more importantly, there are concerns that have been raised with regards to how exactly does it have a direct impact on the market. But having said that, what's the direct impact over in India? And whether at all DeepSeek does have a security concern. Now, on your screens is a picture of a question that was actually posed to this particular AI engine. When asked on Tamil Nadu, it recognizes the state as a sovereign part of India. But watch the cryptic response when basically asked about Arunachal Pradesh. Now, this signals that there is a clear element of Chinese government control in this whole application. Now, is this a threat for the Indians? Will China use this to rather private data of thousands and thousands of people? Now, viewers, applications like TikTok, which were banned for the exact same reason, the issue of privacy and data protection, and now, since the China control angle is no more a secret, will this be leveraged for collection of sensitive information? Because the reason essentially being is this is exactly what is going to happen. On your screens right now, DeepSeek's cryptic message, the moment this question on Arunachal Pradesh was asked, there is the response that you see right now on your screen. And that is the reason why there are bigger concerns. One, what happens if an Indian user actually logs into this particular application? Are you basically giving up some part of your data? And that is the one big security concern. While there is a larger fight within the AI ecosystem right now, and whether at all there is becoming an AI ecosystem race that is actually going on, that's a different aspect. But having said that, this is another cause of concern at this point in time, particularly with regards to the usage of this particular application. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all that we could have packed in this edition of This Is Exclusive. We'll be back tomorrow, the same time, with more exclusive stories.